Welcome back to episode 4 of Color Me October. Today's coloring page is Horror Night, one of my personal favorites. And we're welcoming another guest artist to the show tonight. That would be my older sister. I'm sure you've seen her around here and there. She's going to take us back to some 90s Halloween nostalgia with today's page. So get your coloring page, pull out your art supplies, and pour yourself a nice warm cup of creative juice. Tonight we're going to jump straight into our story. Last week's was Cozy Fairy Tales, and this week is Cozy 90s Nostalgia. And what could be better than R.L. Stine's Goosebumps? Viewer beware, you're in for a scare. The Haunted Mask. What are you going to be for Halloween? Sabrina Mason asked. She moved her fork around the bright yellow macaroni on her lunch tray, but didn't take a bite. Carly Beth Caldwell sighed and shook her head. The overhead light in the lunchroom ceiling made her straight brown hair gleam. I don't know. A witch, maybe. Sabrina's mouth dropped open. You? A witch? Well, why not? Carly Beth demanded, staring across the long table at her friend. I thought you were afraid of witches, Sabrina replied. She raised a forkful of macaroni to her mouth and started to chew. This macaroni is made of rubber, she complained, chewing hard. Remind me to start packing a lunch. I am not afraid of witches, Carly Beth insisted, her dark eyes flashing angrily. You just think I'm a big scaredy cat, don't you? Sabrina giggled. Yes. She flipped her black ponytail behind her shoulders with a quick toss of her head. Hey, don't eat the macaroni. Really, Carly Beth. It's gross. She reached across the table to keep Carly Beth from raising her fork. But I'm starving, Carly Beth explained. The lunchroom grew crowded and noisy. At the next table, a group of 5th grade boys were tossing a half-full milk carton back and forth. Carly Beth saw Chuck Green ball up a bright red fruit roll-up and shove the whole sticky thing in his mouth. Yuck! She made a disgusted face at him. Then she turned back to Sabrina. I'm not a scaredy cat, Sabrina. Just because everyone picks on me and... Carly Beth, what about last week? Remember, at my house? Sabrina ripped open a bag of tortilla chips and offered some across the table to her friend. You mean the ghost thing? Carly Beth replied, frowning. That was really stupid. But you believed it, Sabrina said with a mouthful of chips. You really believed my attic was haunted. You should have seen the look on your face when the ceiling started to creak and we heard the footsteps up there. That was so mean, Carly Beth complained, rolling her eyes. Then when you heard footsteps coming down the stairs, your face went all white and you screamed, Sabrina recalled. It was only Chuck and Steve. You know I'm afraid of ghosts, Carly Beth said, blushing. And snakes and bugs and loud noises and dark rooms and witches. I don't see why you have to make fun of me, Carly Beth pouted. She shoved her lunch tray away. I don't see why everyone always thinks it's so much fun to try to scare me. Even you, my best friend. I'm sorry, Sabrina said sincerely. She reached across the table and squeezed Carly Beth's wrist, reassuringly. You're just so easy to scare. It's hard to resist. Here, want some more chips? She shoved the bag toward Carly Beth. Maybe I'll scare you someday, Carly Beth threatened. Her friend laughed. No way. Carly Beth continued to pout. She was 11, but she was tiny, with her round face and short stub of a nose, which she hated and wished would grow longer. She looked much younger. Sabrina, on the other hand, was tall, dark, and sophisticated looking. She had straight black hair tied behind her head in a ponytail, and enormous dark eyes. Everyone who saw them together assumed that Sabrina was 12 or 13, but actually, Carly Beth was a month older than her friend. Maybe I won't be a witch, Carly Beth said thoughtfully, resting her chin on her hands. Maybe I'll be a disgusting monster with hanging eyeballs and green slime dripping down my face, and... A loud crash made Carly Beth scream. It took her a few seconds to realize that it was just a lunch tray hitting the floor. She turned to see Gabe Moser, his face bright red, drop to his knees and start scooping his lunch off the floor. The lunchroom rang out with cheers and applause. Carly Beth hunched down in her seat, embarrassed that she had screamed. Her breathing had just returned to normal when a strong hand grabbed her shoulder from behind. Carly Beth's shriek echoed throughout the room. She heard laughter. At another table, someone yelled, "Way to go, Steve!" She whipped her head around to see her friend, Steve Boswell, standing behind her, a mischievous grin on his face. "Gotcha," he said, letting go of her shoulder. Steve pulled out the chair next to Carly Beth's and lowered himself over its back. His friend, Chuck Green, slammed his book bag onto the table and then sat down next to Sabrina. Steve and Chuck looked so much alike, they could have been brothers. Both were tall and thin, with straight brown hair, which they usually hid under baseball caps. Both had dark brown eyes and goofy grins. Both wore faded jeans and dark-colored, long-sleeved t-shirts. And both of them loved to scare Carly Beth. They spent hours dreaming up new ways to frighten her. She vowed every time that she would never, never fall for one of their stupid tricks again. But so far, they had won every time. Carly Beth always threatened to pay them back. But in all the time they'd been friends, she hadn't been able to think of anything good enough. Chuck reached for a few remaining chips in Sabrina's bag. She playfully slapped his hand away. "Get your own." Steve held a crinkled hunk of aluminum foil under Carly Beth's nose. "Want a sandwich?" "I don't want it." Carly Beth sniffed it suspiciously. "What kind is it? I'm starving." "It's a turkey sandwich. Here," Steve said, handing it to Carly Beth. "It's too dry. My mom forgot the mayo. You want it?" "Yeah, sure, thanks," Carly Beth exclaimed. She took the sandwich from him and peeled back the aluminum foil. Then she took a big bite of the sandwich. As she started to chew, she realized that both Steve and Chuck were staring at her with big grins on their face. Something tasted funny, kind of sticky and sour. Carly Beth stopped chewing. Chuck and Steve were laughing now. Sabrina looked confused. Carly Beth uttered a disgusted groan and spit the chewed-up sandwich hunk into a napkin. Then she pulled the bread apart and saw a big, brown worm resting on top of the turkey. Ugh! With a moan, she covered her face with her hands. The room erupted in laughter. Cruel laughter. "I ate a worm! I'm gonna be sick!" Carly Beth groaned. She jumped to her feet and stared angrily at Steve. "How could you?" she demanded. "It isn't funny. It isn't a real worm," Chuck said. Steve was laughing too hard to talk. "Huh?" Carly Beth gazed down at it and felt a wave of nausea rise up from her stomach. "It isn't real. It's rubber. Pick it up," Chuck urged. Carly Beth hesitated. Kids all through the vast room were whispering and pointing at her and laughing. "Go ahead, it isn't real. Pick it up," Chuck said, grinning. Carly Beth reached down with 2 fingers and reluctantly picked the brown worm from the sandwich. It felt warm and sticky. "Gotcha again," said Chuck with a laugh. It was a real worm. A real worm. With a horrified cry, Carly Beth tossed the worm at Chuck, who was laughing wildly. Then she leaped away from the table, knocking the chair over. As the chair clattered noisily against the hard floor, Carly Beth covered her mouth and ran gagging from the lunchroom. "I can still taste it," she thought. "I can still taste the worm in my mouth. I'll pay them back for this," Carly Beth thought, bitterly as she ran. "I'll pay them back. I really will." As she pushed through the double doors and hurtled toward the girls' room, the cruel laughter followed her across the hall. After school, Carly Beth hurried through the halls without talking to anyone. She heard kids laughing and whispering. She knew they were laughing at her. Word had spread all over school that Carly Beth Caldwell had eaten a worm at lunch. Carly Beth the scaredy cat. Carly Beth who was frightened of her own shadow. Carly Beth who was so easy to trick. Chuck and Steve had sneaked a real worm, a fat brown worm, into a sandwich, and Carly Beth had taken a big bite. Carly Beth ran all the way home, 3 long blocks. Her anger grew with every step. How could they do that to me? They're supposed to be my friends. Why do they think it's funny to scare me? She burst into the house, breathing hard. "Anybody home?" she called, stopping in the hallway and leaning against the banister to catch her breath. Her mother hurried out from the kitchen. "Carly Beth, hi, what's wrong?" "I ran all the way," Carly Beth told her, pulling off her blue windbreaker. "Why?" Mrs. Caldwell asked. "Just felt like it." Her mother took Carly Beth's windbreaker and hung it in the front closet for her. Then she brushed a hand affectionately through Carly Beth's soft brown hair. "Where did you get this straight hair?" she muttered. Her mother was always saying that. We don't look like mother and daughter at all, Carly Beth realized. Her mother was a tall, chubby woman with thick curls of coppery hair and lively gray-green eyes. She was extremely energetic, seldom stood still, and talked as rapidly as she moved. Today she was wearing a paint-stained gray sweatshirt over black lycra tights. "Why so grumpy?" Mrs. Caldwell asked. "Anything you care to talk about?" Carly Beth shook her head. Not really. She didn't feel like telling her mother that she had become the laughingstock of Walnut Avenue Middle School. "Well, come here. I have something to show you," Mrs. Caldwell said, tugging Carly Beth toward the living room. I'm not really in the mood, Mom. Come on, her mother insisted, pulling her across the hallway. Carly Beth always found it impossible to argue with her mother. She was like a hurricane, sweeping everything in her direction. "Look," Mrs. Caldwell declared, grinning and gesturing to the mantelpiece. Carly Beth followed her mother's gaze to the mantel and cried out in surprise. "It's a head!" "Not just any head," Mrs. Caldwell said, beaming. "Go on, take a closer look." Carly Beth took a few steps toward the mantelpiece, her eyes on the head staring back at her. It took a few moments to recognize the straight brown hair, the brown eyes, the short snip of a nose, the round cheeks. "It's me!" "Yes, life-size," Mrs. Caldwell declared. "I just came from my art class at the museum. I finished it today. What do you think?" Carly Beth picked it up and studied it closely. "It looks just like me, Mom. Really. What's it made of?" "Plaster of Paris," her mother replied, taking it from Carly Beth and holding it up so that Carly was face to face, eye to eye, with herself. "You have to be careful with it. It's delicate, you see. It's hollow inside." Carly Beth stared intently at the head, peering into her own eyes. It's kind of creepy," she muttered. "You mean because I did such a good job?" "It's just creepy, that's all," Carly Beth said. She forced herself to look away from the replica of herself and saw that her mother's smile had faded. Mrs. Caldwell looked hurt. "Don't you like it?" "Yeah, sure. It's really good, Mom," Carly Beth answered quickly. "But I mean, why on earth did you make it?" "Because I love you," Mrs. Caldwell replied. "Why else? Honestly, Carly Beth, you have the strangest reactions to things. I worked really hard on this sculpture. I'm sorry, Mom. I like it. Really, I do," Carly Beth insisted. "It was just a surprise, that's all. It's great. It looks just like me. I had a bad day. That's all, Mom." Carly Beth took another long look at the sculpture. Its brown eyes, her brown eyes, stared back at her. The brown hair shimmered in the afternoon sunlight. "It smiled at me," Carly Beth thought, her mouth dropping open. "I saw it. I just saw it smile. No, it had to be a trick of the light. It was a plaster head," she reminded herself. "Don't go scaring yourself over nothing, Carly Beth. Haven't you made a big enough fool of yourself today?" "Thanks for showing it to me, Mom," she said awkwardly, pulling her eyes away. She forced a smile. "Two heads are better than one, right?" "Right," Mrs. Caldwell agreed brightly. "Incidentally, Carly Beth, your duck costume is all ready. I put it on your bed." "Huh? Duck costume? You saw a duck costume at the mall, remember?" Mrs. Caldwell carefully placed the sculpted head on the mantel. "The one with all the feathers and everything. You thought it would be funny to be a duck this Halloween, so I made you a duck costume." "Oh, right," Carly Beth said, her mind spinning. "Do I really want to be a stupid duck this Halloween?" she thought. "I'll go up and take a look at it, Mom. Thanks." Carly Beth had forgotten all about the duck costume. "I don't want to be cute this Halloween. I want to be scary." She had seen some really scary-looking masks in the window of a new party store that had opened a few blocks from school. One of them she knew would be perfect. But now she'd have to walk around in feathers and have everyone quack at her and make fun of her. It wasn't fair. Why did her mother have to listen to every word she said? Just because Carly Beth had admired a duck costume in a store didn't mean she wanted to be a stupid duck for Halloween. Carly Beth hesitated outside her bedroom. The door had been pulled closed for some reason. She never closed the door. She listened carefully. She thought she heard someone breathing on the other side of the door. Someone, or maybe something. The breathing grew louder. Carly Beth pressed an ear to the door. What was in her room? There was only one way to find out. Carly Beth pulled open the door and uttered a startled cry. With a hideous cry, an enormous white feathered duck, its eyes wild and frenzied, leaped at Carly Beth. As she staggered backwards in astonishment, the duck knocked her over and pinned her to the hallway floor. The costume has come alive! That was Carly Beth's first frightened thought. Then she quickly realized the truth. Noah, get off me, she demanded, trying to push the big duck off her chest. The white feathers brushed against her nose. Hey, that tickles! She sneezed. Noah, come on! Quack, quack. Noah, I mean it, she told her 8-year-old brother. What are you doing in my costume? It's supposed to be my costume. I was just trying it on, Noah said, his blue eyes staring down at her through the white and yellow duck mask. Did I scare you? Not a bit, Carly Beth lied. Now get up, you're heavy. He refused to budge. Why do you always want everything that's mine? Carly Beth demanded angrily. I don't. And why do you think it's funny to try to scare me all the time? I can't help it if you get scared every time I say boo. Get up! Get up! He quacked a few more times, flapping the feathery wings. Then he climbed to his feet. Can I have this costume? It's really neat. Carly Beth frowned and shook her head. You got feathers all over me. You're molting. Molting? What's that mean? Noah demanded. He pulled off the mask. His blonde hair was damp from sweat and matted against his head. It means you're going to be a bald duck, Carly Beth told him. I don't care. Can I have this costume? Noah asked, examining the mask. It fits me, really. I don't know. Maybe. The phone rang in her room. Get lost, okay? Go fly south for the winter or something, she said, and hurried to answer the phone. Hello? Oh, hi, Sabrina. Yeah, I'm okay. Sabrina had called to remind Carly Beth that the school science fair was tomorrow. They had to finish their project, a model of the solar system constructed with ping pong balls. Come over after dinner, Carly Beth told her. It's almost finished. We just have to paint it. My mom said she'd help us take it to school tomorrow. They chatted for a while. Then Carly Beth confided. I was so mad, Sabrina. At lunch today, why did Chuck and Steve think it's so funny to do things like that to me? Sabrina was silent for a moment. I guess it's because you're so scarable, Carly Beth. Scarable? You scream so easily, Sabrina said. Other people get scared, but they're more quiet about it. You know Chuck and Steve, they don't really mean to be mean. They just think it's funny. Well, I don't think it's funny at all, Carly Beth replied. And I'm not going to be scarable anymore. I mean it. I'm not ever going to scream or get frightened again. The science projects were all set up for judging on the stage of the auditorium. Mrs. Armbruster, the principal, and Mr. Smythe, the science teacher, walked from display to display, taking notes on their clipboards. The solar system, as designed by Carly Beth and Sabrina, had survived the trip to school in pretty good shape. Jupiter had a slight dent in it, which the girls had struggled unsuccessfully to straighten out, and Earth kept coming loose from its string and bouncing across the floor. But both girls agreed the display looked pretty good. Maybe it wasn't as impressive as Martin Goodman's project. Martin had built a computer from scratch, but Martin was a genius, and Carly Beth figured the judges didn't expect everyone else to be geniuses too. Looking around the crowded, noisy stage, Carly Beth saw another interesting project. Mary Sue had built some kind of electronic robot arm that could pick up a cup or wave to people. And Brian had several glass bottles filled with gunky stuff that he claimed was toxic waste. Someone had done a chemical analysis of the town's drinking water, and someone had built a volcano that would erupt when the judges came by. Our project is kind of boring, Sabrina whispered nervously to Carly Beth, her eyes on the two judges who were oohing and awing over Martin Goodman's homemade computer. I like our project, Carly Beth insisted. We worked hard on it, Sabrina. I know, Sabrina replied fretfully, but it's still kind of boring. The volcano erupted, sending up a gusher of red liquid. The judges appeared impressed. Several kids cheered. Uh-oh, here they come, Carly Beth whispered, jamming her hands into her jeans pockets. Mrs. Armbruster and Mr. Smythe, smiles plastered across their face, were coming closer. They stopped to examine a display of light and crystals. Suddenly, Carly Beth heard an excited shout from somewhere behind her on the stage. My tarantula! Hey, my tarantula got out! She recognized Steve's voice. Where's my tarantula? He called. Several kids uttered startled cries. Some kids laughed. I'm not going to get scared, Carly Beth told herself, swallowing hard. She knew she was terrified of tarantulas, but this time she was determined not to show it. My tarantula, it got away, Steve shouted over the roar of excited voices. I'm not going to get scared. I'm not going to get scared, Carly Beth repeated to herself. But then she felt something pinch the back of her leg and dig its spiny pincher into her skin, and Carly Beth uttered a shrill scream of terror that rang out throughout the auditorium. Carly Beth screamed and knocked over the solar system. She kicked her leg wildly, trying to toss off the tarantula. Ping-pong ball planets bounced over the floor. She screamed again. "Get it off! Get it off!" "You're okay! You're okay!" Sabrina pleaded. It took Carly Beth a long while to realize that everyone was laughing. Her heart pounding, she spun around to find Steve, down on his hands and knees behind her. He made a pinching motion with his thumb and finger. "Gotcha again," he said, grinning up at her. "No!" Carly Beth cried. There was no tarantula, she realized. Steve had pinched her leg. She raised her head and saw the kids all over the stage were laughing. Mrs. Armbruster and Mr. Smythe were laughing too. With a cry of anger, Carly Beth tried to kick Steve in the side, but he spun away. She missed. "Help me pick up the planets," she heard Sabrina say. But Sabrina seemed far, far away. All Carly Beth could hear were the pounding of her heart and the laughter of the kids all around her. Steve had climbed to his feet. He and Chuck were side by side, grinning at her, slapping each other high fives. "Carly Beth, help me," Sabrina pleaded. But Carly Beth turned around, jumped off the stage, and ran, escaping up the dark auditorium aisle. "I'm going to pay Steve and Chuck back," she vowed angrily, her sneakers thudding loudly up the concrete aisle. "I'm going to scare them, really scare them. But how?" "Okay, what time should I meet you?" Carly Beth asked, cradling the phone between her chin and shoulder. On the other end of the line, Sabrina considered for a moment. "How about 7:30? It was Halloween. The plan was to meet at Sabrina's house, then go trick-or-treating through the entire neighborhood. "The earlier the better. We'll get more candy," Sabrina said. "Did Steve call you?" "Yeah, he called," Carly Beth replied bitterly. "Did he apologize?" "Yeah, he apologized. Big deal. I mean, he already made me look like a jerk in front of the entire school. What good is an apology?" "I think he felt bad," Sabrina replied. "I hope he felt bad," Carly Beth exclaimed. "It was so mean." "It was a dirty trick," Sabrina agreed. And then she added, "But you'll have to admit it was kind of funny." "I don't have to admit anything," Carly Beth snapped. "Has it stopped raining?" Sabrina asked, changing the subject. Carly Beth pulled back the curtain to glance out her bedroom window. The evening sky was charcoal gray. Dark clouds hovered low, but the rain had stopped. The street glistened wetly under the light of the street lamp. "No rain. I've got to go." "See you at 7:30, Carly Beth said, speaking rapidly. "Hey, wait, what's your costume?" Sabrina demanded. "It's a surprise," Carly Beth told her, and hung up. "It'll be a surprise to me too," she told herself, glancing unhappily at the feathery duck costume rolled up on the chair in the corner. Carly Beth's plan had been to go to the new party store after school and pick out the ugliest, most disgusting, scariest mask they had. But her mother had picked her up after school and insisted that she stay home and watch Noah for a couple of hours. Mrs. Caldwell hadn't returned home until 5:15. Now it was nearly 5:45. There was no way the party store would still be open, Carly Beth thought, frowning at the duck costume. "Quack, quack," she said miserably. She walked to the mirror and ran a hairbrush through her hair. Maybe it's worth a try, she thought. Maybe the store stays open late on Halloween. She pulled open her top dresser drawer and took out her wallet. Did she have enough money for a good, scary mask? $30. Her life savings. She wadded up the bills and stuffed them back into the wallet. Then jamming the wallet into her jeans pocket, she grabbed her coat and hurried downstairs out the front door. The evening air was cold and damp. Carly Beth struggled to zip her coat as she jogged towards the party store. The house next door had a glowing jack-o'-lantern in the front window. The house on the corner had paper skeletons strung up across the front porch. The wind howled through the bare branches. The branches above her head shook and rattled like bony arms. What a creepy night, Carly Beth thought. She started running a little faster. A car rolled silently by, sending harsh white light floating across the sidewalk like a bright ghost. Glancing across the street, Carly Beth saw Old Carpenter Mansion looming over its dark, weed-choked lawn. Everyone said the ramshackle old house was haunted by people who'd been murdered inside it 100 years ago. Once, Carly Beth had heard frightening howls coming from the old mansion. When she was Noah's age, Steve and Chuck and some other kids had dared each other to go up to the house and knock on the door. Carly Beth had run home instead. She never did find out if the other kids were brave enough to do it. Now Carly Beth felt a chill of fear as she hurried past the old house. She knew this neighborhood really well. She had lived in it her entire life. But tonight, it looked different to her. Was it just the wet glow left by the rain? No. It was a heavy feeling in the air. A heavier darkness. The eerie orange glow of grinning pumpkins in the windows. The silent cries of ghouls and monsters waiting to float free on their night to celebrate. Halloween. Trying to force all the scary thoughts from her mind, Carly Beth turned the corner. The little party store came into view. The window was lighted, revealing 2 rows of Halloween masks staring out at the street. But was the store still open? Crossing her fingers, Carly Beth waited for a truck to rumble past, then eagerly jogged across the street. She stopped for a second to examine the masks in the window. There was gorilla masks, monster masks, and some sort of blue-haired alien mask. Pretty good, she thought. Pretty ugly, but they probably have even scarier ones inside. The lights were on in the store. She peered through the glass door. Then she tried turning the knob. It didn't move. She tried again. She tried pulling the door open. Then she tried pushing. No way. She was too late. The store was closed. Carly Beth sighed and peered through the glass. The walls of the tiny store were covered with masks. The masks seemed to stare back at her. They're laughing at me, she thought unhappily. Laughing at me because I'm too late. Because the store is closed, I'm going to have to be a stupid duck for Halloween. Suddenly, a dark shadow moved over the glass, blocking Carly Beth's view. She gasped and took a step back. It took her a moment to realize that the shadow was a man in a black suit staring out at her, a look of surprise on his face. Are you closed? Carly Beth shouted through the glass. The man gestured that he couldn't hear her. He turned the lock and pulled the door open an inch. Can I help you? He asked curtly. He had shiny black hair, parted in the middle, and slicked down on his head, and a pencil-thin black mustache. Are you open? Carly Beth asked timidly. I need a Halloween mask. It's very late, the man replied, not answering her question. He pulled the door open another few inches. We normally close at 5. I really would like to buy a mask, Carly Beth told him in her most determined voice. The man's tiny black eyes peered into hers. His expression remained blank. Come in, he said quietly. As Carly Beth stepped past him into the store, she saw that he wore a black cape. It must be a Halloween costume, she told herself. I'm sure he doesn't wear that all the time. She turned her attention to the masks on the 2 walls. What kind of mask are you looking for? The man asked, closing the door behind him. Carly Beth felt a stab of fear. His black eyes glowed like 2 burning coals. He seemed so strange, and here she was, locked in this closed store with him. Scary one, she stammered. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. The gorilla mask has been very popular. It has real hair. I believe I may have one left in stock. Carly Beth stared up at the gorilla mask. She didn't really want to be a gorilla. It was too ordinary. It wasn't scary enough. Do you have anything scarier? She asked. He flipped his cape back over the shoulder of his black suit. How about a yellowish one with pointy ears? He suggested, pointing. I believe it's some sort of Star Trek character. I still have a few of them, I believe. No, Carly Beth shook her head. I need something really scary. A strange smile formed under the man's thin mustache. His eyes burned into hers, as if trying to read her thoughts. Look around, he said with a sweep of his hand. Everything I have left in stock is up on the walls. Carly Beth turned her gaze to the masks. A pig mask with long, ugly tusks and blood trickled from the snout caught her eye. Pretty good, she thought, but not quite right. A hairy werewolf mask with white pointy fangs was hung beside it. Again, too ordinary. Her eyes glanced over a green Frankenstein mask, a Freddy Krueger mask that came with Freddy's hand, complete with long silver blades for fingers, and an E.T. mask. Just not scary enough, Carly Beth thought, starting to feel a little desperate. I need something that will really make Steve and Chuck die of fright. Young lady, I'm afraid I must ask you to make your choice, the man in the cape said softly. He had moved behind the narrow counter at the front and was turning a key in the cash register. We really are closed after all. I'm sorry, Carly Beth started. It's just that... The phone rang before she could finish explaining. The man picked it up quickly and began talking in a low voice, turning his back to Carly Beth. She wandered toward the back of the store, studying the masks as she walked. She passed a black cat mask with long, ugly yellow fangs. A vampire mask with bright red blood. Trickling down its lips was hung next to a grinning, bald mask of Uncle Fester from the Addams Family. Not right, not right, not right, Carly Beth thought, frowning. She hesitated when she spotted a narrow door, slightly open at the back of the store. Was there another room? Were there more masks back there? She glanced to the front. The man hidden behind his cape still had his back to her as he talked on the phone. Carly Beth gave the door a hesitant push to peek inside. The door creaked open. Pale orange light washed over the small, shadowy back room. Carly Beth stepped inside and gasped in amazement. 24 empty eye sockets stared blindly at Carly Beth. She gaped in horror at the distorted, deformed faces. They were masks, she realized. 2 shelves of masks. But the masks were so ugly, so grotesque, so real. They made her breath catch in her throat. Carly Beth gripped the doorframe, reluctant to enter the tiny back room. Staring into the dim orange light, she studied the hideous masks. One mask had long, stringy yellow hair falling over its bulging green forehead. A hairy black rat's head poked out from a knot in the hair, the rat's eyes gleaming like 2 dark jewels. The mask beside it had a large nail stuck through the eye hole. Thick, wet-looking blood poured from the eye down the cheek. Chunks of rotting skin appeared to be falling off another mask, revealing gray bone underneath. Carly Beth's horror mixed with excitement. She took a step into the room. The wooden floorboards creaked noisily beneath her. She took another step closer to the grotesque, grinning masks. They seemed so real, so horribly real. The faces had such detail. The skin appeared to be made of flesh, not rubber or plastic. These are perfect, she thought, her heart pounding. These are just what I was looking for. They look terrifying just propped up on these shelves. She imagined Steve and Chuck seeing one of these masks coming at them in the dark of night. She pictured herself uttering a blood-curdling scream and leaping out from behind a tree on one of them. She imagined the horrified expressions on the boys' faces. She pictured Steve and Chuck shrieking in terror and running for their lives. Perfect. Perfect. What a laugh that would be. What a victory. Carly Beth took a deep breath and stepped up to the shelves. Her eyes settled on an ugly mask on the lower shelf. It had a bulging, bald head. Its skin was a putrid yellow-green. Its enormous sunken eyes were an eerie orange and seemed to glow. It had a broad, flat nose, smashed in like a skeleton's nose. The dark-lipped mouth gaped wide, revealing jagged, animal fangs. Staring hard at the hideous mask, Carly Beth reached out a hand toward it. Reluctantly, she touched the broad forehead, and as she touched it, the mask cried out. "Ah!" Carly Beth shrieked and jerked back her hand. The mask grinned at her. Its orange eyes glowed brightly. The lips appeared to curl back over the fangs. She suddenly felt dizzy. What is going on here? As she staggered back away from the shelves, she realized that the angry cry hadn't come from the mask. It had come from behind her. Carly Beth spun around to see the black-caped store owner glaring at her from the doorway. His dark eyes flashed. His mouth was turned down into a menacing frown. "Oh, I thought," Carly Beth started, glancing back at the mask. She still felt confused. Her heart pounded loudly in her chest. "I'm sorry you saw these," the man said in a low, threatening voice. He took a step toward her, his cape brushing the doorway. What is he going to do? Carly Beth wondered, uttering a horrified gasp. Why is he coming at me like that? What is he going to do to me? "I am so sorry," he repeated, his small dark eyes burning into hers. He took another step closer. Carly Beth backed away. Then she uttered a startled cry as she backed into the display shelves. The hideous masks jiggled and quaked as if alive. What do you mean?" she managed to choke out. I was just... "I am sorry you saw these because they are not for sale," the man said softly. He stepped past her and straightened one of the masks on its stand. Carly Beth breathed a loud sigh of relief. He didn't mean to scare me. I'm scaring myself. She crossed her arms in front of her coat and tried to force her heartbeat to return to normal. She stepped to the side as the store owner continued to arrange the masks, handling them carefully, brushing their hair with one hand, tenderly dusting off their bulging, blood-covered foreheads. "Not for sale? Why not?" Carly Beth demanded. Her voice came out tiny and shrill. "Too scary," the man replied. He turned to smile at her. "But I want a really scary one," Carly Beth told him. "I want that one." She pointed to the mask she had touched, the mask with the open mouth and its terrifying jagged fangs. "Too scary," the man repeated, pushing his cape behind his shoulder. "But it's Halloween," Carly Beth protested. "I have a really scary gorilla mask," the man said, motioning for Carly Beth to go back to the front room. "Very scary. Looks like it's growling. I'll give you a good price on it since it's so late." Carly Beth shook her head, her arms crossed defiantly in front of her, It won't scare Steve and Chuck, she said. The man's expression changed. Who? My friends, she told him. I have to have that one, she insisted. It's so scary. I'm almost afraid to touch it. It's perfect. It's too scary, the man repeated, lowering his eyes. He ran a hand over the green forehead. I can't take that responsibility. It's so real looking, Carly Beth gushed. They'll both faint. I know they will. Then they'll never try to scare me again. Young lady, the store owner started, glancing impatiently at his watch. I really must insist that you make up your mind. I am a patient man, but... Please, Carly Beth begged. Please sell it to me. Here, look. She dug in her jeans pocket and pulled out the money she had brought. Young lady, $30, Carly Beth said, shoving the wadded up bills into the man's hand. I'll give you $30 for it. That's enough, isn't it? It's not a matter of money, he told her. These masks are not for sale. With an exasperated sigh, he started toward the doorway that led to the front of the store. Please, I need it. I really need it, Carly Beth begged, chasing after him. These masks are too real, he insisted, gesturing to the shelves. I'm warning you. Please. He shut his eyes. You will be sorry. No, I won't. I won't. I know I won't, Carly Beth exclaimed gleefully, seeing that he was about to give in. He opened his eyes. He shook his head. She could see that he was debating himself. With a sigh, he tucked the money into his coat pocket. Then he carefully lifted the mask from the shelf, straightening the pointed ears, and started to hand it to her. Thanks, she cried, eagerly snatching the mask from his hands. It's perfect. Perfect. She held the mask by the flat nose. It felt soft and surprisingly warm. Thanks again, she cried, hurrying to the front door, the mask gripped tightly in her hand. Can I give you a bag for it? The man called after her. But Carly Beth was already out of the store. She crossed the street and started to run toward home. The sky was black. No stars poked through. The street still glistened wetly from the afternoon's rain. This is going to be the best trick-or-treat night ever, Carly Beth thought happily, because this is the night I get my revenge. She couldn't wait to spring out at Steve and Chuck. She wondered what their costumes would be. They had both talked about painting their faces blue and dyeing their hair blue and being Smurfs. Lame. Really lame. Carly Beth stopped under the streetlight and held up the mask, gripping it with both hands by its pointed ears. It grinned up at her, the two crooked rows of fangs hanging over its thick, rubbery lips. Then, tucking it carefully under one arm, she ran the rest of the way home. Stopping at the bottom of the driveway, she gazed up at her house, the front windows all glowing brightly, the porch light sending white light over the lawn. I've got to try this mask out on someone, she thought eagerly. I've got to see just how good it is. Her brother's grinning face popped into her mind. Noah, of course, she said aloud. Noah has really been asking for it. Grinning gleefully, Carly Beth hurried up the driveway, eager to make Noah her first victim. Carly Beth crept silently through the front door and tossed her coat onto the entryway floor. The house felt stuffy and hot. A sweet smell, the aroma of hot cider on the stove, greeted her. Mom really gets into holidays, she thought with a smile. Tiptoeing through the front hallway, holding the mask in front of her, Carly Beth listened hard. Noah, where are you? Where are you, my little guinea pig? Noah was always bragging about how he was so much braver than Carly Beth. He was always putting bugs down her back and planting rubber snakes in her bed. Anything he could think of to make her scream. She heard footsteps above her head. Noah must be up in his room, she realized. He's probably putting on his Halloween costume. At the last minute, Noah had decided he wanted to be a cockroach. Mrs. Caldwell had dashed frantically all over the house, finding material to build pointy feelers and a hard shell for his back. Well, little bug is in for a surprise, Carly Beth thought evilly. She examined her mask. This should send that cockroach scampering under the sink. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs. She could hear loud music coming from Noah's room, an old heavy metal song. Gripping the mask by the rubbery neck, she raised it carefully over her head. She pulled it slowly down. It was surprisingly warm inside. The mask fit tighter than Carly Beth had imagined. It had a funny smell, kind of sour, kind of old, like damp newspaper that had been left for years in an attic or garage. She slid it all the way down until she could see through the eye holes. Then she smoothed the bulging bald head over her head and tugged the neck down. I should have stopped in front of a mirror, she fretted. I can't see if it looks right. The mask felt very tight. Her breathing echoed noisily in the flat nose. She forced herself to ignore the sour smell that invaded her nose. She held on tightly to the banister as she crept up the stairs. It was hard to see the steps through the eye holes. She had to take the climb slowly, one step at a time. The heavy metal music ended as she stepped into the landing. She crept silently down the hall and stopped outside Noah's door. Carly Beth edged her head into the doorway and peeked into the brightly lit room. Noah was standing in front of the mirror, adjusting the 2 long cockroach feelers above his head. "Noah, I'm coming for you," Carly Beth called. To her surprise, her voice came out gruff and low. It wasn't her voice at all. Startled, Noah spun around. "Noah, I've got you," Carly Beth shrieked, her voice deep, raspy, evil. "No!" her brother uttered a hushed cry of protest. Even under his bug makeup, Carly Beth could see him go pale. She darted into the room, her arms outstretched as if ready to grab him. "No, please!" he cried, his expression terrified. "Who are you? How did you get in?" "He doesn't even recognize me," Carly Beth thought gleefully. "He's scared to death." Was it the hideous face, the deep rumble of a voice, or both? Carly Beth didn't care. The mask was definitely a success. "I've got you!" she screamed, surprising herself at how scary her voice sounded from inside the mask. "No, please!" Noah begged. "Mom! Mom!" He backed toward the bed, trembling all over, his feelers quivering in fright. Carly Beth burst out laughing. The laughter came out in a deep rumble. "It's me, stupid," she cried. What a yellow-bellied scaredy cat. Still huddled by the bed, Noah stared hard at her. "Don't you recognize my jeans, my sweater? It's me," Carly Beth declared in the gruff voice. "But your face, that mask," Noah stammered. It really scared me. I mean," he gaped at her, studying the mask. "It didn't sound like you, Carly Beth," he muttered. "I thought..." Carly Beth tugged at the bottom of the mask, trying to lift it off. It felt hot and sticky. She was panting noisily. She tried pulling the bottom with both hands. The mask didn't budge. She raised her hands to the pointed ears and tried lifting it off. She tugged harder. She tried pulling the mask off by the top of the head. It didn't move. "Hey, it won't come off," she cried. "The mask, it won't come off." "What's going on here?" Carly Beth cried, tugging at the mask with both hands. "Stop it," Noah cried. His voice sounded angry, but his eyes revealed fear. "Stop kidding around, Carly Beth. You're scaring me." "I'm not kidding around," Carly Beth insisted in her harsh, raspy voice. "I really can't get this off." "Take it off. You're not funny," her brother shouted. With great effort, Carly Beth managed to slip her fingers under the neck of the mask. Then she pulled it away from her skin and lifted it off her head. Whew! The air felt so cool and sweet. She shook her hair free. Then she playfully tossed the mask at Noah. "Good mask, huh?" She grinned at him. He let the mask bounce onto the bed. Then he picked it up hastily and examined it. "Where'd you get it?" he asked, poking a finger against the ugly fangs. "At that new party store," she told him, wiping perspiration from her forehead. "It's so hot inside it." "Can I try it on?" Noah asked. "Not now. I'm late," she replied sharply. "You sure looked scared." He tossed the mask back at her, frowning. "I was just pretending," he said. "I knew it was you." "For sure," she replied, rolling her eyes. "That's why you screamed like a maniac." "I did not scream," Noah protested. "I was just putting on an act for you." "Yeah, right," Carly Beth muttered. She turned and headed toward the door, rolling the mask over her hand. "How did you change your voice like that?" Noah called after her. Carly Beth stopped at the doorway and turned back to him. Her smile gave way to a puzzled expression. "I don't know," Carly Beth replied thoughtfully. "I really don't know." By the time she got to her room, she was grinning again. The mask had worked. It had been a wonderful success. Noah might not want to admit it, but when Carly Beth burst in on him, growling through the hideous mask, he nearly jumped out of his cockroach shell. "Look out, Chuck and Steve," she thought gleefully. "You're next." She sat down on her bed and glanced at the clock radio on her bedside table. She had a few minutes until it was time to meet everyone in front of Sabrina's house. Time enough to think of the best possible way to give them the scare of their lives. "I don't want to just jump out at them. I want to do something they'll remember. Something they'll never forget." She ran a hand over the mask's pointy ears. Suddenly, she had an idea. Carly Beth pulled the old broom handle from the closet. She brushed off a thick ball of dust and examined the long wooden pole. Perfect, she thought. She checked to make sure her mother was still in the kitchen. She was sure that her mother wouldn't approve of what Carly Beth was about to do. Mrs. Caldwell still thought that Carly Beth was going to wear the duck costume. Tiptoeing silently into the living room, Carly Beth stepped up to the mantel and pulled down the plaster of Paris head her mother had sculpted. "It really does look just like me," Carly Beth thought, holding the sculpture waist high and studying it carefully. "It's so lifelike. Mom is really talented." Carefully, she placed the head on the broomstick. It balanced easily. She carried it over to the hallway mirror. "It looks like I'm carrying my real head on a stick." A wide grin broke across her face. Her eyes sparkled gleefully. Excellent. She leaned the head and the stick against the wall and pulled on the mask. Once again, the sour aroma rushed into her nostrils. The heat of the mask seemed to wrap around her. The mask tightened against her skin as she pulled it down. Raising her eyes to the mirror, she nearly frightened herself. It's like a real face, she thought, unable to take her eyes away. My eyes seem a part of it. It doesn't look as if I'm peering out of eye holes. She moved the gruesome mouth up and down a few times. It moves like a real mouth. It doesn't look like a mask at all. It looks like a gross, deformed face. Working with both hands, she flattened the bulging forehead, smoothing it over her hair. Excellent, she repeated to herself, feeling the excitement grow. Excellent. The mask is perfect, she decided. She couldn't believe the man at the party store didn't want to sell it to her. It was the scariest, realest, ugliest mask she had ever seen. I will be the terror of Maple Avenue tonight, Carly Beth decided, admiring herself in the mirror. Kids will be having nightmares about me for weeks, especially Chuck and Steve, she told herself. Boo, she muttered to herself, pleased to hear that the gruff voice had returned. I'm ready. She picked up the broomstick, carefully balanced her sculpted head on top of it, and started to the door. Her mother's voice stopped her. Carly Beth, wait up, Mrs. Caldwell called from the kitchen. I want to see how you look in that duck costume. Uh-oh, Mom isn't going to like this. Carly Beth froze in the doorway. She could hear her mother's footsteps approaching in the hallway. Let me see you, dear, Mrs. Caldwell called. Did the costume fit? Maybe I should have told her about my change of plans, Carly Beth thought guiltily. I would have said something, but I didn't want to hurt Mom's feelings. Now she's in for a shock, and she's going to be really angry when she sees I've borrowed her sculpture. She's going to make me put it back on the mantle. She's going to ruin everything. I'm kind of in a hurry, Mom, Carly Beth called, her voice deep and raspy inside the mask. I'll see you later, okay? She pulled open the front door. You can wait 1 second while I see my costume on you, her mother called. She rounded the corner and came into view. I'm sunk. The phone rang. The sound echoed loudly inside Carly Beth's mask. Her mother stopped and turned back to the kitchen. I better answer that. It's probably your father calling from Chicago. She disappeared back to the kitchen. I'll have to see you later, Carly Beth. Be careful, okay? Carly Beth breathed a sigh of relief. Saved by the bell, she thought. Balancing the head on the broomstick, she hurried out the door and jogged down the front yard. It had become a clear, cool night. A pale half moon rose over the bare trees. Fat brown leaves swirled around her ankles as she headed toward the sidewalk. The plan was to meet Chuck and Steve in front of Sabrina's house. Her head bobbed and bounced on the broomstick as she ran. The house in the corner had been decorated for Halloween. Orange lights ran along the top of the stoop. 2 large, smiling pumpkin cutouts stood beside the doorway. A cardboard skeleton had been propped at the end of the front walk. I love Halloween, Carly Beth thought happily. She crossed the street onto Sabrina's block. On other Halloween nights, she had been frightened. Her friends were always playing mean tricks on her. Last year, Steve had slipped a very real-looking rubber rat into her trick-or-treat bag. When Carly Beth had reached into the bag, she felt something soft and hairy. She pulled out the rat, shrieked at the top of her lungs. She was so scared, she spilled her candy all over the driveway. Chuck and Steve thought it was a riot. So did Sabrina. They always spoiled Halloween for her. They thought it was so hilarious to scare Carly Beth and make her scream. Well, this year, I won't be the one screaming. This year, I'll be the one making everyone else scream. Sabrina's house was at the end of the block. As Carly Beth hurried toward it, bare tree limbs shivered above her. The half moon disappeared behind a heavy cloud, and the ground darkened. The head on the broom handle bounced and nearly fell off. Carly Beth peered over the top of the shrub. The 2 boys were halfway up the driveway. It was too dark to get a good look at their costumes. One of them wore a long overcoat and a wide-brimmed Indiana Jones fedora. She couldn't really see the other one. She gripped the broomstick tightly. My whole body is trembling, she realized. The mask suddenly felt hot, as if her excitement had heated it up. Her breath rattled noisily in the flat nose. Walking slowly, playfully blocking each other with their shoulders like football linemen, the boys made their way up the driveway. One of them said something Carly Beth couldn't hear. The other one laughed loudly, a high-pitched giggle. Peering into the darkness, Carly Beth watched them until they were nearly right in front of the shrub. Okay, now. Raising the broomstick with its staring head on top, she leaped out. The boys shrieked, startled. She could see their dark eyes go wide as they gaped at her mask. A ferocious roar escaped her throat, a deep, rumbling howl that frightened even her. At the terrifying sound, both boys cried out again. One of them actually dropped to his knees on the driveway. They both stared up at the head bobbing on the broomstick. It seemed to glare down at them. Another howl escaped Carly Beth's throat. It started low, as if coming from far away, and then pierced the air, raspy and deep, like the roar of an angry creature. No! Who are you? Leave us alone! Carly Beth heard rapid footsteps crunching over the dead leaves on the driveway. She saw a woman in a bulky down coat running up the driveway. Hey, what are you doing? The woman demanded. Are you scaring my kids? Carly Beth swallowed hard. She turned her eyes back to the two frightened boys. Wait! She realized they weren't Chuck and Steve. What are you doing? The woman repeated breathlessly. She stepped up to the two boys and put a hand on each of their shoulders. Are you two okay? Yeah, we're okay, Mom. The one in the overcoat and fedora replied. The other boy wore white makeup and a red clown nose. She jumped out at us, he told his mother, avoiding Carly Beth's stare. She kinda scared us. The woman turned angrily to Carly Beth and shook her finger at her accusingly. Don't you have anything better to do than scare two young boys? Why don't you pick on someone your own age? Normally, Carly Beth would have apologized. She would have explained to the woman that she made a mistake, that she meant to scare two different boys. But hidden behind the ugly mask, still hearing the strange howl that had burst so unexpectedly from her throat, she didn't feel like apologizing. She felt anger, and she wasn't sure why. Go away, she rasped, waving the broomstick menacingly. The head stared down at the two startled boys. What did you say? Their mother demanded, her voice tight with growing outrage. I said go away, Carly Beth snarled in a voice so deep, so terrifying that it frightened even her. The woman crossed her arms in front of the heavy down coat. Her eyes narrowed at Carly Beth. Who are you? What is your name? She demanded. Do you live around here? Mom, let's just go, the boy with the clown face urged, tugging at her coat sleeve. Go away, I'm warning you. The woman stood her ground, her arms tightly crossed. Her eyes narrowed at Carly Beth. Just because it's Halloween doesn't give you the right. Mom, we want to get some candy, the clown pleaded, tugging his mother's sleeve harder. Come on, we're wasting the whole night, his brother complained. Carly Beth was breathing hard, her breath escaping the mask in low, noisy grunts. I sound like an animal, she thought, puzzled. What is happening to me? She could feel her anger growing. Her face felt burning hot. Her entire body was trembling. She felt about to burst. I'm gonna tear this woman apart, Carly Beth decided. I'll chew her to bits. I'll tear her skin off her bones. Furious thoughts raged through Carly Beth's mind. She tensed her muscles, crouched low, and prepared to pounce. That was The Haunted Mask by R.L. Stine. And that's all for today's episode of Color Me October. You'll have to tune in next week to hear the chilling conclusion. See you next time.